One of the staples we have quite often with all of our meals is rice. Rice is a starch. You know, you have a protein for a meat, you have vegetables, and you should have a starch, which could be potatoes or rice, but we have a lot of rice. Now this rice is just good old long grain rice. This would have to be, you know, cooked and boiled and stuff, and it usually takes about a half an hour to do this. So often we resort to the good old, you know, minute rice or its fake cousin, instant rice. These are the products we use a lot, and we have our pantry filled with a couple of cases of instant rice. It's just very convenient and we like it a lot. So what we're going to do today, we're going to convert this bag to instant rice, and I'm going to show you the procedure I came up with, and this procedure works fine with me because it has to deal with boiling. Altitude will change the temperature a little bit because of my altitude where I live. So we're going to go through the steps to make instant rice out of long grain rice. It's simple. I'm going to start off with 4 cups of long grain rice, and to that, now I know what you're going to think, I'm going to add 4 cups of water to my 4 cups of rice, but that makes my rice, in my circumstance, my elevation and everything, just a little bit on the sticky side. So what I've come up with is I'm going to add 3 3/4 cup of water to my 4 cups of rice. So I'm holding back a 1/4 cup of water. Now, and one of the reasons why I'm also doing that is because I'm going to go rinse the starch powder out of this rice, because, you know, in the packages, this rice kind of moves back and forth in the package. It rubs against each other and can make a fine powder, which can make the rice sticky. So we're going to wash this before we cook it. And of course, this rice, after it's washed, is going to have a little bit of moisture to add to my 3 3/4 cup. But still, even with the moisture in this rice, it's still going to be just a little bit shy of 4 cups of water. But depending on your situation, you might have to play around with those ratios. But the rule of thumb is 1 cup water to 1 cup rice. So I got 2 colanders. I'm going to put 2 cups of rice into this one, about half full. And just using medium temperature water, I'm just going to go around with a spoon and rinse this rice off and try to get all the starch I can out of this. So I'm going to set that aside, and we're going to go ahead and do the other half. So I have my 3 3/4 cup of water going into a large pot, and we're going to go ahead and heat this up until it comes to a boil. The water is boiling, so we are going to go ahead and add our rice. So that's 2 cups here and 2 cups here for a total of 4 cups. So I had this on high. I'm now going to turn this down to low and set the timer for 20 minutes. It's been 20 minutes, so I'm going to turn the heat off, but I'm not going to take off the lid. If I take off the lid, you can see a big column of steam will come out of this pot, and I need that moisture to go into the rice. So I'm going to let this cool down for another 10 minutes before removing the lid, because I need the moisture to stay in with the rice and not to escape into the atmosphere. Okay, the cool down process is completed, so you can still see a little steam coming off of that. We're going to go through here and just kind of puff up the rice and see how it came out. And we'll see how this is. Pretty good rice. So that came out pretty good. We'll go ahead and put it in a tray for now. So this is 4 cups of rice. And this is going to fill the tray and then some, but this is going to be just fine. It's going to be a very full tray, but it'll freeze dry just the same. I'm going to move this around and let it cool down a little bit more. So this amount of rice right here is 2,388 grams hot and steamy. So we're going to take a look to see what happens after this cools down and how much moisture the steam is actually going to remove from this rice. The rice has cooled down, and just to give you an idea how much moisture we lost, this was originally 2,388 grams. It's now 2,356, and that is this amount of water that has left the rice just in the steam. So now that it's cooled, we're going to go ahead and throw this in the freezer, and the freezer will remove another 5 or 6% of moisture before we put it into the freeze dryer. Now, before I do put this in the freezer, the profile is still pretty high. So what we're just going to do, we're just going to kind of pack this down a little bit. Not a problem, and it's not a problem on how much rice we have in here. It's like stack it deep and dry it cheap. And this is going to dry just fine. Get all these little loose guys here off the counter. And I have 3 other trays just like this in the freezer. And once these are frozen solid, we'll go ahead and put them in the freeze dryer. All my rice is frozen absolutely solid, and I'm ready to put this into the freeze dryer. Now, if you think about it, I have 4 trays, and each tray has 4 cups of rice, and it roughly took 4 cups of water for each cup. So basically, if you take a look at this, I'm putting 16 cups of water into my freeze dryer. And so the ice ring that's going to be in the freeze dryer is going to be quite substantial. But I've been able to load the ice ring up with actually 24 cups of water in the past on a test. So the ice ring is going to be substantial, but nothing that the freeze dryer can't handle. And you can kind of see how much food I have on each of these trays. So there's quite a bit. This will still dry just fine. And it's going to, this overloading the trays will actually dry faster than if I did 2 separate loads, and that's the reason I'm doing it. So into the freeze dryer this goes, and we'll see what happens. The next rice dish we're going to be making is using Arborio rice, and this is a rice that's primarily used for risotto, and that's what we're going to be making next. And this is a pretty basic risotto recipe. We have 4 tablespoons butter. We have a medium onion that comes basically to a half a cup of onion that's minced finely, 2 cloves of garlic, 1 cup Arborio rice, and that can be adjusted if you have a larger family. Just 2 of us here. You can go up to 1.5 cups if you want. A half a cup of white cooking wine, and then to finish it off later on, we have another tablespoon of butter. We have a half a cup of Parmesan cheese. A teaspoon salt for the initial seasoning. We might have to add more, and also pepper along with it. And of course, we got our chicken stock right here. Heat plays a real important factor with making risotto. And so we need to get our chicken stock nice and hot, and we need to keep it nice and hot as we add it slowly to the rice. We don't want to put like a cold chicken stock into the hot rice, because that's just going to cool everything down. So we're going to keep this nice and hot, not to boil, but just nice and hot. In this pan, we're going to go ahead and put in our 4 tablespoons of butter. I'm going to go ahead and soften that and melt that. Once this melts, we're going to go ahead and put in the onions. Stir that for about 2 minutes and put in the garlic for about a minute. We don't want to caramelize the onions and the garlic. We just want to soften them. And then once that's all ready, we're going to go ahead and add the white wine, get that all ready, and then we're going to go ahead and put in the rice. Okay, now we're going to add the garlic and stir that in for about a minute. And I'm doing all this on medium heat. Okay, next comes the rice. And this immediately sucks up all the liquid. But we just want to get this rice not quite brown, but just to puff up just a little bit. We want the rice to suck in all that goodness. And my pot here is nice and hot. This is our chicken stock, so we're going to keep this on medium heat also. Nice and hot, so we want to put hot liquid into the hot pan. Most of the butter has been absorbed by the rice, and if I slide this across, I can just feel like there's just a little bit of resistance, and that's basically, Arborio rice has a lot of starch in it, and that starch is going to start sticking to the bottom of the pan. I can kind of feel that as I push this across. There's a little bit of resistance, and that's what we want to have, and that's about the time that we want to start really get this thing cooking. So with that, we're going to go ahead and add half a cup of cooking wine. And what this will do, this will deglaze the bottom of the pan and remove that starch and become part of the liquid again. And we're going to let this simmer until this is reduced back into almost, well, not a broth, but it's reduced back into the rice itself. So the rice sucked up the butter, now it's sucking up the wine, and you can kind of see it's almost like making a creamy film on the bottom of my pan. And this rice is just sucking up everything I give to it. So with that in mind, we're going to start with a little bit of broth and add that to it. We're just going to add a little bit at a time and let the rice suck up what it can. We don't want to add too much because we don't want to make rice soup. So it's better to go a little bit at a time and just let the rice take what it can. To the point it can't take any more, but you want to be able to have that creamy texture with the rice, just a little bit of a bite, but not soggy. Now I made 4 cups of broth. If I have to, if I find myself running out of broth or running low, if I've made more rice, that's fine. It won't take that long to come up with a little bit more chicken stock. Now some of this rice I'm going to just have for dinner. Then some of it I'm just going to freeze dry, not for storage, but I'm going to freeze dry it, and then we're going to reconstitute it and kind of see how it comes out. I've never freeze dried risotto. Well, I've freeze dried risotto before, but I've never reconstituted it to see how it comes out. But we'll be doing that on this one here. Now there's lots of variations to this. You can add mushrooms. Risotto is just basically like a base dish, and there's all sorts of things you can add to this to make it just a wonderful dish. I just barely tasted the risotto. It's no longer crunchy, but it's not soft. It's kind of, well, it's becoming softer, but it's not crunchy any longer. And we've been doing this for about 15 minutes now. As we get closer to this finished product, we want to taste it more often than not, because we don't want to add so much broth into it that it becomes rice soup. But we don't want to get it too dry, but we want to have the rice be kind of firm. So as it gets closer to being done, we want to add less broth to it, just in case, it gives us a buffer so we don't overdo it with the broth. We're almost done, and this is probably when it becomes the most critical, because you want the rice cooked. But you don't want it soggy. You want it a little bit firm, but you still want it creamy. You got to just be real careful about adding the broth towards the end here. But we're almost done, probably about another minute or two. I think we are done. So this is nice and creamy, nice consistency. You can kind of see it's not soupy. And we're going to add the last tablespoon of butter in here. We're going to melt this up. And I've been tasting this, and it just needs just a little bit of salt, not the teaspoon I planned for, because if I would put that whole teaspoon in, that would make it really, really salty. And then the Parmesan cheese. And the heat comes off. That is absolutely delicious. So this is the risotto. I mean, like I said, you could put crab in here, lobster in here. You could put just about anything on top of this risotto to, spice it up a little bit, but this is pretty much just a basic dish right here. This will go well with our root vegetables and the pork chops. And I'm also going to freeze dry some of this. So these are the root vegetables: parsley, carrots, beets, all sorts of things that have those big, huge roots in the ground. And then our pork chop. And since the risotto is kind of creamy, we're going to put this in a small bowl so it doesn't run into the rest of our food. And this is dinner for tonight. I hope you enjoyed this segment, and we're going to go next to the instant rice. I have 16 cups in the freeze dryer right now, and it's about ready to come out. So this is 16 cups of freeze-dried rice. Each tray had 4 cups, which also meant there was 16 cups of ice basically in my freeze dryer, and this comes out pretty good. This took 36 hours from start to finish, and somewhere in there was a 3-hour delay because we lost power, but it turned out really good. Now, this is minute rice, and if you follow the instructions on this, you have to boil the water, you add the rice on a 1-to-1 ratio, and you have to wait 5 minutes. So this is probably maybe a little bit longer than 10-minute rice. Well, if that's minute rice, this is second rice. This stuff comes back really fast. I'm going to take a 1/4 cup of our rice, and this is going to be the good old traditional 1/2 and 1/2 ratio, and a 1/4 cup of boiling water. And we're going to give this just a little bit of a stir here. And we're going to cover it and come back in about 4 minutes. And 4 minutes later, we have fluffy white rice ready to eat. Just as good, as minute rice. So I made 16 cups of rice. This is going to go in my inventory. It took me 36 hours to freeze dry all of this, and it was well worth it. Now, on to the next project. This is my leftover risotto. I'll have to find something to occupy this spot, but this is ready to go into the freezer. So this is my rice, all ready to go into my inventory. This has been vacuum packed, so there is like hardly any air in this. And this is basically how I've been doing my packaging recently and from now on, is I'm going to be vacuum packing everything unless whatever I'm packing is going to be very delicate where it's just going to get smashed. But for rice, this is a great way of doing it. This is 4 cups, so altogether right here, 16 cups of rice for my inventory. So this is my risotto and some shrimp that I did. And as you can see, the risotto came out really, really nice. So it's not a lot of risotto, but it is enough for 2 people for 1 meal. So I'll go ahead and package this up. And if I want to, I can go ahead and package some of this shrimp along with it to have shrimp risotto. So this is like a base meal risotto. You can add just about anything you want to it. Lobster, you can add shrimp, mushrooms, so anything you desire. So this is just one more thing that you can use with rice, and rice is so versatile. Outside of wheat, rice is probably the most used grain that we have. So I hope you enjoyed this rice odyssey, and if you don't have rice in your inventory, you probably should add it. And you can also add rice to so many other side dishes to help expand your food storage and to give starch into your diet. So I'd like to thank you for your time. I'd ask for your support, and please subscribe, and I will send you another video soon. And as always, go forth, freeze dry the world, and make it a better place. Until I see you then, thank you. Whoa, Nelly, not so fast. I got so caught up in doing the video with rice and such that I never rehydrated the risotto. So we're going to take a moment here. I had this all packed up, vacuum sealed, ready to go in my storage, and I didn't reconstitute it. Now this is the risotto that I did with shrimp. Well, I did the risotto and I threw shrimp in with it. So we're going to go ahead and open this up and reconstitute it and see how it came out. I don't know if you heard that, but as soon as I opened up this packet, you could hear that vacuum sucking the air in, which is really good to hear. And well, here's our oxygen absorber, and this one was from Fresh Pack USA. And you know, it's interesting, as I'm holding this in my hand, it's warming up. It still is kind of soft. It's not gritty, but this oxygen absorber is actually warming up. Because I had it vacuum packed, I took all the air out. Vacuum absorber is still good, and it's getting warm. That is absolutely crazy. It kind of shows you how well vacuum packing can do. So anyway, I digress. So we're going to go ahead and put this in here. Now, this is kind of 2 things mixed into one, so I'm going to separate some of the shrimp out of here. Another thing I noticed, I thought the shrimp would be kind of destroyed because of the vacuum packing, but the shrimp is still hasn't been crushed. So that's a good thing. Okay, so I have some hot water. Now, I want my risotto to be nice and creamy. So this is going to be a little bit more difficult rehydrating because I don't want rice soup. Well, the shrimp, not a problem. I can just throw this hot water in with the shrimp and there's not going to be any problem there. It's the risotto that I need to be really careful about so I don't overhydrate this. Okay, we're getting close. I'm going to let this sit for a minute. I got some water in here that's just kind of sitting in there. So I'm going to give this about 10 minutes, 5 minutes or so, and come back to it. It's been 10 minutes, and the rice is almost there. It just needs a little bit of help. So what we're going to do, I'm going to go ahead and prepare this. The risotto is nice and creamy, like I was hoping it would be. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in there. We're going to take some shrimp. The shrimp came back just really, really good. No problems with the shrimp. Shrimp rehydrates really, really quick. So you can lay some shrimp on top of here. Then I'm going to get some plastic wrap. I'm going to go ahead and cover this. I'm going to throw it in the microwave for about 30 seconds or maybe a minute to get this hot and to steam it. And that steam will help reconstitute that risotto even better. And here we go. Well, that's nice and warm now. And I have to admit, doesn't that look really good? Okay, so let's try this out. Oh, that is good. That is so creamy. This is really tasty. I think Gordon Ramsay would be proud of me. So, this I think is a very successful rice dish. If you haven't tried making your own risotto, it's pretty simple and it is absolutely delicious. You can use lobster, you can use peas, shrimp. There are so many things that you can top risotto with, and it makes a really good side dish to about any meal you can have. So, with that now said, thank you for your time, and I will see you soon.